How you guys doing, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? It's the Brandon Cruz Daily Fantasy Podcast, where I'm going to look at loan plays and strategies specifically designed for GPPs. This is a show for people who already understand how these contests operate. If you have a question related to NASCAR, this is a stupid question, feel free to send them away at BrandonCruzDFS on Twitter. Most importantly, take everything under a grain of salt and use your best judgment when making entries. Additionally, if you have a gaming addiction, that's just not my problem. Check your sense of feelings at the door. We're talking about the Cup Series at Kansas in this video. About three things I need to cover before we get in there. First off, I don't know if I'm going to be here this weekend. At the moment, I don't see myself doing live show Saturday. I don't see myself doing a live show with Jordan on Sunday. That could change, but I might be out of town this weekend. Kind of last minute things, trying to get ready for the trip in Phoenix. I got to go down, get a truck inspected in the county over there, and I kind of need more time to get that done. I might do that next weekend, but might do it this weekend. Anyway, I'm putting it out right here. I might not be here this weekend, so this video is probably going to be breaking down, like we did last weekend, more in-depth, more of how I would imagine I'd end up building lines. Two, pretty fishy early in the week that we saw the article from Forbes come out, and as I kind of said, nobody really said anything here, and nobody's really taking the angle just because I'm crazy and I always take these types of angles. But early in the week, we had Forbes come up with a article saying, hey, you know what, NASCAR really doesn't care about TV ratings anymore. TV ratings are not the thing they once were, and I agree with that to an extent, but this really did seem more like propaganda to show that NASCAR is doing fine in this world. They have more eyes on them than ever, and I frankly didn't believe it. It's really fishy that they chose this around this time of year to put out like, hey, NASCAR is doing fine, we're still alive, despite the fact that we're going to be firing a ton of people entering next year. A ton of people are going to lose their jobs next year with the new car. And yeah, it was just kind of odd for that to come out, and it was just weird. It seemed like propaganda. It seemed like basically they were trying to cover their own ass, saying like, hey, you know, people still watch us, not as much as we'd like, but yet again, not everybody has television now. We're going to go to a streaming service to where more people are going to see us on streaming in the future. We're looking at that type of stuff. And, you know, the championship race, we're going to have different streams on Peacock for the championship race. And it just seemed a bit weird, and timing was a bit odd. Yesterday comes out that Bob Pockrass talks about NASCAR releasing purse numbers for a random race at Kansas for whatever reason. Last time we had purses released was 2015, and when you start putting this stuff in order, it really seems like they're trying to show that NASCAR is just fine. We're not treading water, we're not doing any of that, when it really seems like NASCAR is yet again showing signs of not being there. Now, you can argue with me, you can skip across to the DFS stuff. Sorry, we're kind of throwing a rant in there, but it just seems like NASCAR is trying to take care of damage control before it really gets there. And what I mean by that is, and let me go ahead and change the screen here. And so this is one of the tweets I'm talking about here, and it's NASCAR releasing the purse numbers, which is yet again, they haven't done this since 2015. This is more of a hush hush. They wanted to keep it behind closed doors, so it's very rare that we could see what actual payouts we have in the Cup Series. They released them for all three series, and it just shows that these, other than the Cup Series, which is already spending fuck you money to even race in that series, Xfinity is just racing for pennies on the dollar. Truck Series is just racing for absolute pennies. There's no way you start an Xfinity race or truck race expecting to get any amount of money back. And I just threw it in there roughly, like it kind of, the discrepancies between different sites is a bit different, but I just wanted to easily put this on there. So, you know, if you were spending, you know, nearly $8 million for a Cup race, now obviously it was roughly around $6 million, give or take, like I said, some discrepancies between a couple sites. I just like this one because it was easy to read and put on the video. But as you go lower and look at the Xfinity series, I mean, they're racing for nothing. You got to remember that colleague was basically saying when they wrecked A.J. Allmendinger and Justin Haley at Bristol, you know, each of those cars are roughly $100,000, $110,000 vehicles. This is not paying it out. The Truck Series specifically is a great way in there. And if you've been a long time listener or reviewer of mine, you've heard specifically a lot last year that I talked a lot about purse payouts and things like that. Well, the Truck Series is interesting because, you know, for the Martinsville race, the purse is $674,000, you know, and roughly, you know, discrepancy, whatever site you're looking at, roughly $583,000, 2015. Oddly enough, final season purses are released. What do we see in Texas? a purse for the Truck Series, $583,000. So these teams are roughly racing for the same amount of money. And when we look specifically at the payout structure for a race that was paying this equivalent amount of money back in 2015, you really see what these truck teams are really racing for. Obviously, it's a bit higher, but this is ridiculous. Okay, winner, roughly half of your truck back in value. Oh, what's that? You finish 18th? Enjoy $15,000. I imagine that's probably closer to $19,000 in today's money, somewhere around that. What's that? Oh, you finished, close to 22nd, and say you're still in the top, 32 points. Oh, that was $12,000 back then, give or take maybe $15,000, $16,000 here. So these teams are like, they're not racing for anything, man. There's absolutely no money to be made in racing. And other than being a charter team, I feel like it's still a waste of money. I've kind of said it before, and I said specifically last weekend that I don't think NASCAR is here in 10 years by the way they're doing it. They're alienating the fan bases. They're firing people who want to be involved. They're getting rid of a lot of crew members not crew members, but team members who work at shops and stuff because, hey, this car, you're not going to be building the body from scratch. It's a spec engine where we don't really need we don't need you guys here at the shop. So they're obviously getting rid of people working there. They're moving in a direction that a lot of fans don't like. And I assume they're targeting, like the Zoomer kids who have never changed oil on their vehicle in their life. Just long story short, it was just very odd to see that NASCAR came out with not only an article, or Forbes came out, which that's just them working for NASCAR. So Forbes comes out with an article saying, ratings don't matter anymore. Don't worry about TV ratings. We're doing fine. Kind of sus there. NASCAR randomly releases purses. Hey, don't look. Hey, Cup Series, we're doing fine. We got an $8 million purse for Kansas this weekend. Xfinity's racing for $1.5 million. We got $500,000 for the Truck Series. Okay, well, Truck Series, you're spending $110,000 on a truck. Xfinity Series, I know for a fact, top teams, $110,000, probably more on labor, on engineering just for one car. Like, this is a Ponzi scheme. We've been saying that forever. The only reason these teams are here is because they got COVID bailouts last year, man. Some of these bigger teams got a shitload of money from the government because, of COVID and everything like that. Like, outside of that, like, NASCAR is not doing well. We still got sponsors pulling out. Some guys are unsponsored. For crying out loud, Joe Gibbs is turning down sponsorships for Ty Gibbs. Like, what is going on here? So just wanted to put that in there. Sorry I've wasted your time for probably a good 7 minutes. Let's go ahead and downvote if you don't like it. Let's go ahead and start breaking down the Cup Series this weekend. When we look at the Cup Series, it's very similar to Kansas. So when you look at Texas and Kansas, they're one groove racetracks, very difficult to pass the leader. Last year specifically, we saw, and earlier this year, before Kansas turned into a joke, we saw that you cannot pass the leader. Like, you can get up to the leader, you can certainly get closer than you can at Texas, but there's not a second lane. There's not a real way to really pass a guy. If you're running the bottom and you catch the leader, well, guess what? The leader's just going to run the bottom and give you some dirty air, give you an arrow push out of the corner. Can't really make anything happen. If you're running the high side and the leader's running the bottom and you're catching him on the high side, well, guess what? He's going to slide up to the top, take your line away, give you arrow push, slow your car down. You can't pass the leader here. Not as drastic as Texas, but same situation, same thing day and night. Third point that I wanted to bring up is I galaxy brained myself last week, man. We overthought it. So in the video, and specifically in the live show, I thought for sure Byron would be chalk. I swore I could, and people were bringing him up. People were talking about him. I thought for sure a Larson and Byron combination would easily be 25% of all the total lines. I thought Byron would come in around 30 to 35% owned, being paired with Kyle Larson. I thought that's what would happen. William had to do so little to hit value and to be optimal. I thought for sure he would be owned. I was on the record saying I think he's going to be popular. I think you should either take a stance of either being really high on Byron or just fade him. I chose to build, I think, 2 lines with Byron because I thought he was going to be chalk. The slate locks, I look at ownership, I see Byron at 19%, and I'm like, dude, I'm fucked. I'm screwed. Squid Games, I'm screwed. It was over. I knew it was then and there. I knew Byron would be optimal as soon as the race started. He was way under-owned. Unbelievable. A guy that we've seen in the top 5 in amount of laps or in the amount of fast laps he's run in terms of speed and like on these low tire wear racetracks, Byron is there. I thought for sure Byron would be higher owned last weekend. That's on me. I was assuming people would play him. Same thing with BJ Mcleod. Obviously, as soon as the wreck happened, yet again, BJ Mcleod is optimal, or the punt route's going to be optimal because these guys are going to score 30 points. I thought BJ would be more popular than 5%. And that's still popular for a punt, but I honestly thought a ton of lineups, because that's what my optimizer was telling me. You know, a lot of people are probably going to do, or at least of my lines, a lot of my lines are saying Kyle Larson, Byron, and BJ Mcleod. Try and get off that. Try and get different. I think we're going to have a lot of duplicates. Didn't happen. So when we look at Kansas and also, in the live show, and which was oddly enough, during the live show, I pretty much said one of my favorite lineups that I was running. It was Larson, Byron, Christopher Bell. I think I'd put Kyle Busch in there. I know it had Newman. He got wrecked out. I went to Smithley over BJ Mcleod. But last weekend, I brought up in the live show, I think Christopher Bell is going to be a guy that nobody's talked about. I think he's going to come in lower owned, and he was 11% owned. Got lucky late at the race. When you look at the lap by lap data, and when you look at how crazy that race got, and how crazy Texas was, you see guys who are finishing way better than what they should have finished at. And so you see people like Christopher Bell, who gains a ton of position, nearly 10 positions between lap 299 and 333 due to all the wrecks we had, or all the yellows at the end of the race. Same thing with Kevin Harvick. Got him from, running 10th to finishing 5th last weekend. And other guys as well. Like, obviously, Reddick kind of got hurt by all those restarts. He got forced back because he was on older tires. A lot of things happened in the Texas race that I think we should learn from. I also don't want to overreact to it too much, because we need to look at, okay, who had speed? A lot of the guys we projected to. Joe Gibbs wasn't necessarily as fast as we thought. Penske was better than them, but still, I'm not too concerned about Kansas. A lot of my projections last week are similar to this week. And actually, a lot of them are. Not trying to. It's just, I think a lot of the data that we looked at last week at Texas still applies to Kansas. Am I leaning a ton from Texas in this week? Sure, a little bit. Like Larson, yet again, I still believe he's going to walk away with this race. That's where I was at last week and didn't think we'd see a lot of lap leaders. I thought Larson would just kind of walk away with it, and Larson did. He ended up leading 256 of the 334 laps. I think we're going to run into a similar situation this week again at Kansas, unless things get crazy. Fourth thing I want to bring up is that I'm convinced we're just going to wreck shit each week. Like, that is the new norm for NASCAR. Red turtle shells, NASCAR, playing a hand in it, trying to get restarts late in the race, trying to get restarts to make these one-groove racetracks, these boring racetracks, certainly the end of these races, to be more interesting. Didn't expect the big pileup we saw last week on lap 29 or whatever it happened, but I still say that we're going to see incidents like that this weekend. I would honestly feel more comfortable playing guys that shouldn't work out, like Christopher Bell last weekend. No real data to support him finishing third. He just kind of ended up there due to the late race chaos that we saw. I like the idea of kind of finding guys like that this weekend, and that's specifically why I kind of brought up last week. So this is Texas on the left. This is this week on the right. Kansas on the right. And so even when you kind of compare salaries between certain guys, like obviously Larson went up, $1,200 this weekend, which is something I said last week. I thought Larson was a bit underpriced. He should be priced higher. We've kind of seen a change to where Larson is more expensive, and they kind of brought down more of the value range here. And so, you had Stenhouse, and a lot of these guys are pretty much in identical starting positions and identical situations as last weekend. So Stenhouse, $7,200 last weekend, $7,000 this weekend. We have Bubba Wallace, went from starting 18th last weekend at 64 to this weekend he is 74, starting 27, 10 positions farther back, 9 positions farther back. And then we have Matt DiBenedetto, 13th last weekend, 15th this weekend, discounted Matt DiBenedetto. Like, I think a lot of these prices are due to the ownership that we saw last weekend and how people approach the lineups. And so I don't want to harp on this too much, but I think it is important to at least take a gander at and see where some of these guys are projected. And that's kind of why I have very similar lineups or projections to last weekend, specifically like with Austin Dillon. Last weekend he started 15th. This week he started 14th. The price increased to 300. What am I doing? I'm not priced. I'm not the price check guy. I'm not Pierce. This is Pierce's job to tell you who's increased in price and who's lower in price. But still, I think you can look at last week's ownerships and see kind of where ownership is going to go and where you should kind of take a stand at. Last weekend, Byron, it just blew my fucking mind that he was 19% owned. He's starting 9th this weekend. $100 price increase. Yet again, Byron has to do so little to hit value. We expect him to get fast laps in this race. We expect Byron to run anywhere from 4th to 5th this whole race. Most likely going to siphon off fast laps from Larson during this race. I think Byron is a great play. Do people overreact to see him hit a 19% ownership last weekend in the 15? I think people do. Do we see Christopher Bell gain ownership this weekend? I think we do as well. I don't necessarily like Christopher Bell as much this week. I didn't like him last weekend either. I just played him because, hey, I think he's going to be lower owned. Came in at 11% ownership. People are going to see that he finished 3rd at 11% ownership, and they're probably going to get to Christopher Bell slightly more this weekend, maybe pushing his ownership up to 15, 16, 17%. And so I think this is an interesting slate, not only due to the fact that we have very similar projections as we did last weekend. I think ownership last weekend is going to tell where a lot of the public is going to go. So keep that in mind when you're building lines this weekend. And so I'm not going to show the exact projections this week because I do want to defend my Patreon buddies and all that, or the people that support me. And if you want to support me, BrandonCruz DFS on Patreon. You can find my PayPal in the description of this video or on my Twitter if I've helped you out in any way. If you want to support me, we're getting towards the end of the year, so if you want to send maybe an early Christmas present, I think I would really appreciate that. That'd be really nice. So let's go ahead and look at this again. And so when we go to this race, Larson, we're going to lock Larson in yet again, capping Larson at 100 DraftKings points. Did that last weekend. I'm going to do it again here. So I haven't projected for 100 points. Don't see a reason to project him for any more than that. If everything goes well and Larson shows up and runs the way he should do an identical type of race that he did last weekend. When we go and look at William Byron, now we did see, like I said, the Penske cars did show up and they were faster than I expected to at Texas this previous weekend. Blaney, top 5 in speeds. I don't think that really was affected by the wreck that we did end up having on lap 29. I know that took out some quality drivers, but it wasn't guys that you were going to see, fighting for the top 10. We do need to keep that in mind when we start looking at guys who finished inside the top 20 last weekend, and you have to realize that when we had, we not only had Truex run into issues late in the race, we also had Logano blow the motor, Wallace, Bowman, Stenhouse, Newman, Preece, all got caught up in that wreck earlier in the day. So that's really 6 positions right there of quality cars that were top 20 cars that got taken out. So keep that in mind. Don't necessarily go off of where they finished in Texas. Look at the entire year on intermediate tracks in general. But Blaney was faster than we expected. Right now I'm giving Blaney, and when I compare him to where I projected him last weekend, let me get here. I was expecting Blaney to run around 6th or 7th. End up running in top 5 speeds. This weekend he's going to be starting 2nd. I'm still going to give him around a 5th place finish, 6th place finish. Probably around 12 fast laps, somewhere around there. If he gets laps led, then so be it. But right now I find it hard to believe that we're going to see Blaney score over probably 43, 44, 45 points at Kansas this weekend. I think there's better plays. And so for me, most likely not going to use Blaney this weekend. But that's where we're at right now. Not wanting to use a ton of Blaney. Keselowski, same thing here, starting 3rd. I think he finished around 5th or 6th this weekend. Now, like I said, the Penske guys were faster than we expected. They still just couldn't get by, the top dogs of Hendrick. It was still the Larson show. It was still the Byron show. Like, it was those two guys. Like, those guys were the fastest cars. And even if Penske yet again shows up again, I think Joe Gibbs is going to not bring what they brought to Texas. Like, they brought all of them kind of brought setups to Texas that weren't top of the speed charts, around 9th, 10th, 11th and on speeds. I think they kind of scrap those types of setups, go in a different direction to where Joe Gibbs, in my opinion, is either going to run inside the top 6 or outside the top 12 this weekend. I don't see them really repeating what they did last weekend. This is the part of the season to where you don't just make small changes. You really do kind of do wholesale changes here, because If you're running 8th, you're not making the championship 4. You're not winning a championship. You need to do well in this round. You might as well swing for the fences. Might as well throw the kitchen sink at it and try and get a car that's going to be top 3 in speed or end up being 14th in speed. And so because of that, I'm going to end up pushing Brad Keselowski probably around 6th, 5th finishing position there. Just not going to go there. I'm not a big fan there. Busch, still got him projected for around 4th. I like Busch. I like Denny Hamlin. I think they're still underpriced. So, and we'll talk about what the optimizer is saying, but yet again, similar construction to last weekend, to where I think you need Kyle Larson. I think you need a guy probably above 9K and maybe another 10K guy. And so kind of like a 3 dominator type of build, but it's more so like a 2 dominator, because I really like Bowman this weekend as well. And we'll get to them. We'll get to him when we talk. We'll talk to him when we get there. I like Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott seems like a guy who, drove through the field pretty quickly at Texas. I was actually shocked by how fast he was getting through that field, even though he was, he's going through bum cars, still making stuff happen. Track position just wasn't his friend. He would get, up to 5th, up to 6th, kind of stall out. By the time he gets up there, they go into pit strategy mode, and I don't think we ever really saw the extent of what Elliott had at Texas. $10,000, I think he's underpriced. I think he easily reaches somewhere around 55, 57, maybe even 60 points this weekend. I like Elliott. I like Kyle Busch. I also like Hamlin. And so when you get to these 3 guys, it really seems like it's going to be Larson. So it's Larson plus, and then, you go Kyle Busch, you go Chase Elliott, you go Denny Hamlin. I think that's where you start building your lines this week. And you could throw Truex in there as well. He would probably be my second, or probably not even a second. I'd probably go Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin, and then get Truex. So once I figure out that pairing, that's how I want to go. And so this is yet again a race where it seems like you build a lot of lines, similar to this type of construction. Find the guys you want to hone in on. Yet again, Byron. In my opinion, Bowman more this weekend than last weekend. And so you go here and then do either Byron or Bowman, in my opinion. That's what it seems like it's leaning more towards me right now. Because of that, I'm not as interested in Truex. I would probably lean more towards Hamlin or Kyle Busch first. I'm going to focus on Truex more at Martinsville and Phoenix, in the next couple weeks. Right now, probably a C for me. I know people don't really like the race. Some people do, some people don't. But this shows my primary objective would be to get Larson with Kyle or Elliott or Hamlin. And then, if I got enough money, in terms of lineups, then go to Truex. Probably not going to go to Logano. I do have him hitting value quite easily. I do have Logano at 46.1 points right now. Getting around a 7th place finish. 13 fast laps. I don't think that's crazy to give him. I think I'm even giving him a couple laps led, probably around 9 or somewhere like that. I don't think that's crazy. But same thing with Truex. Probably going to be a 3rd option for me. Now, yet again, Byron has to do the bare fucking minimum to be optimal. We're almost in an identical situation as last weekend, to where, in my opinion, I think a lot of lineups should have Byron in it. Do we see Byron be optimal, or do we see? I think he is optimal. Do we see Byron be a chalk play this weekend? I thought he would be last weekend. I'm thinking he should be this weekend. He has to carry more ownership than he did last weekend. But I like Byron very easily, a 6x value for me this weekend. I think he can easily clear it. Right now, I'm being probably conservative, giving him 57.15 DraftKings points this week. I think he can easily be there. I think it seems like a great idea to either, if you don't want to use Kyle Larson, if you want to use Larson and not use Busch, Elliott, Hamlin, Truex, and you want to go Byron, Bowman, I think that seems like a great idea. If you don't want to use Byron, well, then use Larson. If you don't want to use Bowman, then use Larson, Byron with Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin, like that type of build. Byron seems like a building block. Like I thought he would be last weekend in a lot of lines. He didn't end up being that way. But I think Byron is a building block. And so why am I even going to say, oh, he's going to be just play fucking William Byron. Like, he's a great play. Don't overthink it. Christopher Bell, same situation. I got Christopher Bell with 36 points. I'm giving Christopher Bell a ninth place finish. I played him last weekend in case something stupid shit happened in that race, and it happened late in the race. He got places on a late race restarts, really, because he was around a 9th, 10th, 11th place guy. I think he's very similar to this weekend. Keep him in your player pool. Bell, yet again, seems like a guy that people aren't going to talk about. And maybe, like I said, he was 11% last weekend. Maybe gets talked up to 15, 19%. I would play Bell in a sense of I want to build a lineup that's going to have a little bit less ownership. I need to play Bell because I think he's going to be a little bit lower owned than what he should be. I'm not playing Bell because I think he's a great play. I explained in the live show last weekend. I just think that, hey, people aren't talking about him. He might get lucky in a late race restart. That's exactly what happened. And if you're playing Bell, I think you're hoping for the same situation there too. We have chaos late in the race, and he can gain positions on late race restarts. I don't see him finishing top 5 on his own if this race goes green. Kevin Harvick, $8,900. I think Harvick can hit 5X pretty easily, starting 11th, not having to drive through the field this weekend. We saw Harvick be a guy that is actually running decent speed last week. And so this is a guy that I like looking at. And so even though, the field got cleared out and the top 20 wasn't the top 20 that I would normally see because we lost guys there, but we saw Harvick running 12th for a majority of that race in the first 100 laps. We get into pit strategy. We get at the end of the first stage, coming out of the stage on lap 113, we got Kevin Harvick starting 7th, driving up to 5th, stays in 5th. So pretty much the entirety of the first run in stage number 2, driving in 5th. They have a caution lap 166 to 170. Comes out of that starting 7th. Drives up to 5th, 4th, yet again, rides in 4th pretty much up until the 212 caution. Comes out of that still riding in 4th. Actually drives for 3rd, falls back to 5th. Right now, this is showing on speed. Harvick is back in terms of being a top 5 speed. I think that's where he runs this week. Give him 5th place. Give him 13 laps led. Or not 13 laps led. Give him 5th. Give him 13 fast laps. Call it a day there. Give him around 45, 46, 47 points. I like Harvick. Especially because I think he's underpriced. I think the 8K range is going to probably be void of ownership. It seems like a week where a lot of guys are going to want to build ownership with the 7 and 6K guys. And I like the idea of trying fitting Harvick, maybe even Bowman together with Byron, and just play Larson as the only 10K plus guy in your line. I think that makes a lot of sense here. Tyler Reddick. The reason I wasn't higher on Reddick last weekend is because I didn't see him being able to get into a second lane and get a ton of fast laps. We saw him, starting at the front of the field last weekend on those late race restarts. I wasn't too high on him. I like the idea of playing Reddick, but that was really my my hindrance to him because he was starting 9th. Didn't see him getting a ton of fast laps. I gave him 5. I gave him an 8th place finish. This is a racetrack where I enjoy targeting people like Tyler Reddick. You can't pass the leader, but you can at least get different lanes going. Starting 12th, farther back than he was last weekend. I think he moves up to around running 8th and 9th. I think he yet again gets around 5, 10, 11, 12, 13 fast laps throughout this race. I think Reddick is going to be a good play for me. If I'm building lines, and we'll kind of continue this going on. So say if I'm building, a Larson line, and yada, 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 10K plus 9K guy, whatever the case is. Then I like the idea of going to, I need to put another parenthesis on there. Sorry. Oops. Can I control Z? Are you kidding me? What's going on there, buddy boy? Whoopsie. Whatever, we'll just put it there. So I like the idea of going Larson, a 10K guy or 9K guy together. And then it seems like, even if you want to use Byron or Bowman, whatever the case may be, I think Reddick is a good guy to also, put in that line. I think he's a good building block. I think he's pretty safe. I like him in cash. I like him in GPPs, but I like the builds you can get with Tyler Reddick. And he's difficult to get to in a sense of you kind of have to build around Tyler Reddick. You have to build around getting that $8,400 in that lineup. So that's where I'm at. If you can't afford him, I like his teammate Austin Dillon. But I would actually take Reddick more because I think Reddick gets lower owned due to the pricing issue that he's here. Like 8,400 is a difficult price to get to this week. And so I like the idea of playing Reddick in this, kind of similar to Christopher Bell last weekend, where I identified him as a low-owned guy that I think you should consider having in lineups. Same thing here. I think Reddick has the ability to get up to the front, run different lanes, even in traffic, and get around people. We're going to see Reddick run the high line. Now, you can see that as a plus or a minus. Might give him the wall. Either way, I don't mind Reddick. I would prefer him over Kurt Busch. Not going to play Kurt Busch. I like his teammate Austin Dillon. I see Dillon racing his way into 10th, 9th. I'm fine with that. Giving Dillon 2 fast laps, I think that's easy to get for him. Matt DiBenedetto, $6,000. Like I was, or $6,800. I was quite shocked here. I'm giving DiBenedetto 13th right now. But Brandon, he was running top. I know, but man, when you look at last week, how many fucking restarts did we have late in that race? And because, I was making jokes on Twitter and stuff like, lap like 300 when the caution came out, and you see, Matt DiBenedetto coming out of the caution at like running 9th or 7th or something. Like, I guarantee he's already crying because he's seeing this as his chance to get a race. Races to where we have a lot of restarts, we typically see DiBenedetto get up there and run well. That was the exact thing that happened last weekend. I think DiBenedetto needs restarts to do well. And on a track where you can only pass on restarts, sure, it still leans into that, but I'm still thinking this race gets crazy. I'm thinking that NASCAR does something, or we end up seeing a lot of wrecks like we did at Texas. Like, I think that's the new norm. Let's just embrace it. And so play DiBenedetto if you think we're going to get crazy at the end. If you don't think it, personally, I don't like DiBenedetto this weekend. I see him working out in a wreck fest. I see him working out in a race very similar to last week at Texas. $6,800 is going to be depending on what happens in the last 50 laps of this race. I'll keep him as a C, but I don't know if I'm going to get to him. I would actually prefer to get to Suarez just because he's cheaper. But same thing here. Like I'm worried both about Suarez and DiBenedetto. Eric Jones, think I got to give him around 14th place finish. I think he's probably the best value in the 6K range this weekend. And so going back to these types of lineups, right now, it seems like I'm going to be building around Eric Jones. Just throw Jones in there, throw Kyle in there, and build from there. That's what it's looking like. Michael McDowell, just not going to do it for me. Chase Briscoe, got him for... I got Chase Briscoe for 34 points, and so if you can afford that, off of Jones, go for it. I would prefer Jones or Briscoe over DiBenedetto and Suarez, but to each his own. You got to choose where you want to go there and how much money you have. The issue with Jones is I think Jones is going to be popular because pricing is so expensive this weekend for Larson, and for one of these guys, if you want to combined with Byron or Alex Bowman or even Harvick, it's difficult to have 6,600 left. Difficult to have 6,800 left. I think people are going to go to the $6,100 Eric Jones. We'll just see, but that's what I'm assuming happens this weekend. Eric Almirola, not going to do it. Probably won't get there. I like Christopher Bell. Not Christopher Bell. I like Chris Buescher. And so for me, I'm probably going to go Jones first or Jones and Buescher in a line. Keep that as my bottom and then build from there. I think that's a good build as well. And so if you do actually go, let me bring this up here. So let's just say you end up going, Chris Buescher. You probably can't even see that. My head's probably in the way. So if you end up going Chris Buescher, plus you go, say you do Eric Jones, for instance, and these guys just happen to, not kill each other and wreck, and then say you go Larson and Byron, I think that's a great way to start building this weekend. That's a line that the optimizer likes. That gives you $8,200 left for your other two drivers on average. Like, you can build a killer line like that if you dive into, say the 7K range. If you go to Reddick or Dillon or even Stenhouse, but like that seems like a build for me that I like. Chris Buescher plus Eric Jones, Larson, Byron. That's the lineup that the optimizers like. These are the types of builds that I would think would be popular. But yet again, I mean, the contest is only 9,800 people this weekend. 9,803, $25,000 to first. Maybe people don't multi-enter as much. I mean, like, when we get late in the year for NASCAR, a lot of the interest drops off. People start, putting a lot more time into football. And so maybe we're just crazy this week. I don't know. But anyway, I think that's a great way to start a line. I mean, I'd probably end up running a line built like this and trying to find different guys to go for the last two. If you pay up for these guys, I think Chris Buescher or Eric Jones or both these guys together are still a great way to build lines if you don't necessarily want to punt this weekend or anything like that. When you go with Cole Custer, not interested. Corey Lejoy, $5,500. Don't hate it. I'm giving Corey Lejoy 17 points. But when you start looking at the punt range again, maybe Cody Ware is popping out this weekend. Maybe Quinn Houff isn't looking too bad. And so I'm probably not going to go to Lejoy. If I'm going to the 5K range, I'm going to punt. When we look at Ross Chastain, Rossi, Alexander Rossi. I don't like Chastain as much as I thought I would this weekend. I'm giving around 9 positions gained, 2 fast laps, 39 or 36.9 points, a 4.5 value. I think he's a bit overpriced. I'm probably going to pass on Chastain. Now, the reason I'm probably going to pass on Chastain is when we get to Alex Bowman, the reason I didn't like Alex Bowman last week is because he was starting up front. I was concerned that Alex Bowman, starting 14th, would not be able to get fast laps. I thought he might get stuck in traffic. I thought he might end up running 9th this whole time, not get a ton of laps led. He's competing against Larson, Byron, and other guys. That's gone this weekend. Very small price change between Alex Bowman, a man who's $9,300 last weekend, and Alex Bowman starting pretty much DFL for a top 7 car, $9,800 this weekend. I don't get this at all. That worry that I had for, I didn't mean to click that. Well, you saw the projections on the bottom. I don't hate that. That's the safety net. That's all I wanted for Alex Bowman. Guaranteed that he can get some fast laps. Well, I just trade fast laps for place differential points this weekend. Alex Bowman shows up, runs top 10 in point, or runs top 10 all day. Most likely going to be top 7 in speed, as long as the moron doesn't blow a tire or wreck himself. He has to do. All Bowman has to do this weekend is show up and do what he does each and every week. Run 9th, run 8th, run 7th. That's all you got to do. I like Bowman here. I think Bowman's underpriced, and if Hendrick shows up and they're as fast as they should be, I think it's easy for Bowman to be optimal this weekend. And I really do like the idea of going Larson if he runs away with the race, which we saw last weekend, which I thought we were going to see, and I think we're going to see it again if everything goes the way it should. Byron, because he's underpriced, going to be getting fast laps. Hendrick is going to be fast. Bowman, has that safety net. He doesn't necessarily need to get you the fast laps. He just has to show up and race. And based on the Hendrick speed, he should be at 8th, 9th, 7th place on driver. And so I love Bowman this weekend. I liked him last weekend, a bit hesitant. I told you to fade him because I was just concerned that he wasn't going to get fast laps. Lucky enough, he was got up in the wreck, so I didn't have to worry about that. But I think Bowman can show up and be fast this weekend. BJ Mcleod, got him for 6 points. I do not understand why he was 5% owned. He should have been higher last weekend. I didn't understand that at all. Bubba Wallace, I like Bubba. I think he hits value. I don't see him doing much more than a 5x, but if you're playing cash and you don't want to be as aggressive in terms of lineups, go for it. I'm probably going to go to Stenhouse a bit more. Just depends on what Stenhouse does. I can never get Stenhouse right. I'm giving him 19th right now. We'll keep him in the pool. Probably going to, personally for me, I think I'm staying away from the 7K range this week, but these are probably the 2 best plays in that range, in my opinion. Anthony Alfredo going to be a no for me. Josh Bullock going to be a no for me. Ryan Newman, starting 31st. I liked him more last week. I think 7,300 is a bit much for the place differential from Ryan Newman. I don't usually like paying up for place differential. I know I end up playing AJ Allmendinger at the Roval. I end up paying... Oops, sorry, didn't mean to hit that. I end up playing Harvick last week. But when I play those guys, I think he's going to get I think they're going to get fast laps or end up leading the race. Bowman, I think he's going to get fast laps, and just if he shows up, he should be optimal here, or he should not optimal. He should hit value. Newman, I don't really see him hitting value. I think he ends up finishing around 20th, somewhere around there, and that's a good day for Ryan Newman. And I think he's going to be a little higher on than what he should. So personally, for me, not going to go to Newman right now. Ryan Preece, 27 points for me. That's what I'm giving him right now. Cape Man, I'll see where ownership comes in. Not going to Haley, not going to Ryan Ellis. I don't mind Quinn Half. Going to be a no for me right there. Probably the best punt play here, in my opinion, is Cody Ware. I got him for 23 points. And for 23, why am I even that many points? I have to probably give him 6, not 9. Place differential points. Give him 17. Still the best punt play there. Same thing here. Like, if you like the builds, man, take Cody Ware or take Quinn Half, in my opinion. I think that's where you go. No Fincham, no Star. Joey Gay is a big expensive. Parker Kligerman, probably going to show up, run 27, 26, 25th. Don't hate him. He'll probably end up being popular because people are going to be like, well, he can't lose you any positions. He's starting dead last. We'll keep him in there. He hits value for me. I think he's pretty easy, 5x or at least a 4.9. Good 35 points right there from Parker Kligerman. Not going to kill your day at all. Just depends on. And so that's another thing. Like, why? So Gaunt's just entering this race because this is their last race to really enter. They probably have a intermediate car left and just said, fuck it. You know, we can get in the race. We got enough money to, what is it? Like, let's just go and not start and park, but let's go and run. Nothing to lose. And so Parker's running this race. And I thought that's something we'd see more this year. Not just from Parker Kligerman. So, you know, as I was going through, I kind of identified that, hey, these are the types of builds are kind of how I want to go to approach this week. When we look at, you know, the early optimizer this weekend, it's liking, and I don't hate this, and I'm mainly sharing this because I don't even know if I'm going to play much this week, but it's liking the idea of going Larson, Byron yet again. Byron's popping off like fucking crazy, you know. Elliott to get different, and Chris Buescher, you know, Chris B. I don't hate that. I don't hate that 4-stack at all. I don't hate those guys at all. It's liking Cody Ware. Even in the lineups that doesn't use Cody Ware, it seems like we're going to be using probably one guy in the 5K range to try and get there. If I take Chase Elliott out, it's like an Elliott, man. And I might more be my projections. It's actually my highest line right now with those 4 drivers in it. If you take Elliott out, you could probably trade him with Bowman. So I don't mind that at all. I think Larson, Byron, Bowman, Chris Buescher makes a ton of sense this week. I think that's a pretty strong line. If I could type correctly, you probably think I'm a moron. I can't type at all. If I take Elliott out, then it almost moves more to the 8K range, and so I see a lot more Harvick popping up. And so this one ain't too bad at all. This is Harvick, Larson, Logano, and Byron. Don't hate that at all. Larson, Byron, and Harvick seems to be popular there. Larson, Kyle Busch, Chris Buescher, Kevin Harvick. Like, these are the types of builds that I imagine. So Larson should be popular. Byron seems like a great pairing with him. So yet again, make your mind what you want to do with Byron. Byron should have been popular last weekend. He should be popular this weekend. He was a great play last weekend. The only reason I was saying to not play him is because I thought he'd be more popular. And so entering this weekend, I think fucking Byron should be like 33, 35, 38% owned. Does he get there? Fuck, I don't know. But I think that's where he should be. I think his chance of being optimal is probably around a third. You know, so give him 33% at being optimal. I think that's where his ownership should come in at. It didn't come in last weekend. We'll just have to see if people change or if people start talking him up. But that's kind of where kind of where I want to go this weekend. So thank you guys for watching, and if you like this, consider donating. Consider commenting. Did you like this? Did you like the rant in the beginning? Did you like this long video? We're almost 45 minutes in, so thank you for watching, and we'll see you for the Xfinity Series video in a bit.